Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and holy crap! I finally got my hands on Tokka and Rahzar. I can't believe it. You know, it took so long to get these guys. I missed them the first time around whenever NECA made them available way back in March of 2022 during their Holothon promotion with Target. You know, just in case you were wondering what year it was. You know, if you're watching this in the far distant future. I never saw these guys in stores, and I foolishly didn't order them from costumes.com, even though I was looking at them in stock on the day they went up, because I didn't know that they were shipping them within the US. I did manage to buy them the third time Costumes put them up, but, you know, which was a few weeks later, but my order was canceled. Man, what a bummer. I mean, now it's September of 2022, in case you were still wondering. And NECA and Target just had their second promotion of the year, Fall Geek Out. These went up for sale during NECA's second week of releases. You know, that was Friday, September 9th. But I didn't have to buy them online and deal with all that BS because 2 days earlier, I found them in store. Take a look at that. Man, I went through all 6 of them, and I picked out which was the best, you know, which one had the best paints. If you were curious, most of the Tokkas had some wear on their beaks, so I don't know if that's a common problem that a lot of you might be seeing with your Tokka. Man, I was happy as could be. And, you know, I got lucky because I was tipped off like 3 days before that. I went in there looking for Ninja Turtles stuff. I think I asked somebody if they had any items in the back, you know, just in case. And they were like, well, we don't have anything extra, but the NECA rep comes on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, like, I fidgeted and stressed out at work all day, you know, thinking that I was going to miss them. But lo and behold, when I went there, they were still there. And then I did the right thing by taking a picture of them and posting them on Facebook so other collectors could find them. Now, what I do find really funny is, you know, since March, these Tokka and Rahzar 2-packs have been, like, way overpriced on eBay. I mean, they were selling for over $300, all right? In July, just look at them, $300. Look at all those prices. Those are insane. Like, could you imagine if you were one of those people and you bought that for this 2-pack for over $300, and if you would have just waited 2 months, you could buy them at this price on eBay, you know? You must be kicking yourself if you were one of those people. So let's get moving here because, you know, I have more and more reviews to do after this one. Way too many. At this point, I'm never going to be able to talk about Thundercats, and I love Thundercats. So, all right, these guys come packaged in the standard NECA 2-pack box, you know. The color scheme immediately reminds you of the Turtle Van, and when you spot one of these in the store, you get filled with a huge feeling of excitement. Hopefully, it's not the one you already have, and it's the one you're looking for. In the front of this box, you have this giant window, which is really nice, so you can see the guys inside. My first impressions of these guys, you know, just by looking at them is wow. Like, the faces of these guys look just like they did in the cartoon. You know, one thing I'm going to do in this video is talk about how the designs of these guys are based more on the Playmates action figures than they are on the 1991 Secret of the Ooze Tokka and Rahzar. Obviously, some of those designs were, you know, went into the Playmates action figure design, but these guys, you know, there are certain things about them that are, you know, very specifically Playmates action figure designs. Also included in this window is a lot of food, you know, and a little device right here that, of course, I'm going to explain in, you know, excessive detail. The drawings on this box look great. You know, I think that they are really nice likenesses of these guys from the cartoon. Rahzar really stands out to me. Like, I really like how his face looks. I think that whoever drew it did a great job. You know, Tokka looks really nice too. But man, when I take a look at this Tokka face in this box, like all I can see is Skeksis. All right, this This is the most Skeksis Tokka I've ever seen. Take me out of the box, Gary. Please? Please? It's scaring me, man. All right, so on the sides here, on Rahzar's side, you have a nice picture of Rahzar right there. It's nothing too dynamic, but, it's nice. And then over here you have a picture of a Tokka. Chicken leg, you die! Right? Oh, man. I can't be the only one who sees that. On the back here, you got some more shots of the guys. They're just mostly standing here, though. Like, you would think that they're doing more. When you look at this, you think, man, all these guys must do is just want to eat. And, I mean, that's kind of what they do want to do the whole episode they're in. But, Rahzar is actually a pretty worthy opponent for the turtles. Tokka mostly just cries like a wuss, but, whatever. More on that in a little bit. All right, the description on the side over here is just a very generic Ninja Turtle description. Nothing special. Down here you have pictures of some of the other recent releases. Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady and the Neutrinos are from 2022, and the Pizza Monster is from 2021. Now we're going back to the front, but we're not going to stay there, no, because we're going to talk about the bottom here. And on the bottom here, all right, it says director Randy Falk and Trevor Zamitz. I really need to learn these people's names. I talk about them so many times, and I just keep on messing them up, All right, Sculpt and Fabrication by Paul Harding. Ooh, that actually makes me really excited to take a look at these guys, because Paul was the one who sculpted Ground Chuck and Dirtbag. And in my opinion, that was an awesome 2-pack, So I'm excited to see how these guys look next to those guys. Now, there is no credit for cover art, unfortunately. Who drew these cartoon likenesses? But, whatever. All right, so that's all I got to say about the package. Now it's time for me to, open these guys up, check them out for any broken bits. Hopefully they're all good, because if not, I'm going to freak out, man. And I will talk to you in a second. Here they are, free from their prison of plastic and cardboard, ready to push you down and steal your lunch money, because these dudes are hungry. As a Tokka and Rahzar fan, nothing makes me happier than getting a new variant of these guys. And that's right, I consider every Ninja Turtle toy line just a variant of those old original Playmates action figures. It all makes sense to me, they beat it into my mind with all those different Ninja Turtle variants. As a kid, I never saw the Dirk Savage episode, but believe me, if I would have saw these guys in the cartoon, it would have blew my mind, especially with these somewhat different designs that are more based off of the Playmates toy than the movie, although they are very close to the movie, and we will go over all of that. They don't really have, anything too exciting accessory-wise. Most of it is food. But, everything here makes perfect sense, because everything is from their one and only Fred Wolf cartoon appearance. So first, I'm going to discuss these guys' one and only cartoon appearance. Then I'll show the evolution of these guys from movie to toy to cartoon, I'm not going to get into the whole, Tokka and Rahzar across the different timelines, because I already did that in my Tokka and Rahzar Playmates review. Now, I also reviewed the movie figures of these guys with excessive detail. But, enough with the shameless plugs. Let's talk about the Season 7 episode, Dirk Savage, Mutant Hunter. This is actually a really cool episode and a highlight from Season 7. I've talked about this one a lot, actually. I've talked about it during both of the Punk Frog reviews, and I also talked about it during my Mondo Gecko review, all right? Another couple shameless plugs. All those characters, well, not all the Punk Frogs, but 2 of them, and Mondo Gecko all show up in this one episode along with Tokka and Rahzar, So instead of doing a full episode review, I'm just going to talk about the moments featuring Tokka and Rahzar, And, just for context, just in case you haven't seen the episode, the basic gist is a rich and powerful man, a billionaire, eccentric billionaire named A.J. Howard, hires Dirk Savage to capture all of New York City's mutants. All right, once Dirk captures them, Howard fits them with these compliance cuffs. Along with that, he sort of has this media campaign going on. So a bunch of his human supporters who are all anti-mutants wear these anti-mutant bracelets, because nothing says humans rule and mutants drool like fancy little bracelets. As the story progresses, A.J. Howard reveals himself to be, bum bum bum, a mutant. And an ugly one at that. I can't believe he lied to us. He played on our emotions. I've never felt so violated. Whoa, slow down there. That's not the worst of it. No, you remember those wristbands on the mutants, the compliance cuffs? Well, Howard can use this little device, this purple thing. I didn't hear a name for this thing, and I didn't see one on any of the Turtlepedias. But he uses this control device to control anyone wearing any of his, cuffs or bracelets. Well, cuffs. The bracelets are actually controlled by a different device. They're controlled by a master control that is located in the bottom of this giant statue on top of the A.J. Howard building. I don't know. You should have just had one device be both. All right, so let's get to Tokka and Rahzar. All right, as this episode begins, the guys are searching for two creatures. Now, they don't know what they are. They only know that they're mutant animals. Donnie says ever since the Shredder unleashed mutagen in the zoo years ago, the city's been crawling with them. Now, this is a reference to Planet of the Turtleoids, whenever Shredder was in the zoo with Bebop and Rocksteady, and he uses the mutagen to accidentally, because of Bebop and Rocksteady, Groundchuck and Dirtbag were mutated into their, mutant form. Originally, he wanted the most ferocious animals, but, Bebop and Rocksteady screwed up, of course, So, my question here is, that was really, years ago. Years have passed in this cartoon. And Tokka and Rahzar have just been wandering the streets for years, undetected by anybody, eating random meals and whatnot. Or does that mean that maybe some of the mutagen is still at the zoo and then these animals just keep on running into it every now and then? What's going on here? So while searching, the guys hear a commotion at the Crystal Palace Mall. In the mall, Tokka and Rahzar make their grand entrance. Rahzar says he can smell something good to eat, and Tokka responds that, I'm starving. And then out of nowhere, Rahzar's like, Tokka, you're the only friend I got. What a weird transaction. Have you ever been in a situation where your buddy's like, I'm hungry, let's go to McDonald's? And you respond, you're my one and only true friend, buddy. You're the best. He'd be like, you know what? I actually have some leftovers at home, I gotta eat them. I'll talk to you later. And then you'd never hear from him again. Don't be too desperate, So Tokka and Rahzar break into a restaurant and they start to chow down. Now, just as they're about ready to, feast, the turtles interrupt them. How rude was that, Raph? Come on, you don't just stop a guy in the middle eating like that. The guys are shocked to see a mutant wolf and a mutant snapping turtle. And I like how Raph's like, another mutant turtle? I feel so unique. Man, don't tell him about Jenica. That may push him over the edge. A small fight takes place. Of course, Mikey's grappling hook is completely useless. Come on, why does he even use this thing? He either gets flung around or the bad guy just cuts right through it like it's nothing. Rahzar even cuts Leo's swords with his claw, which is crazy. And the Ninja Turtles just get their butts kicked. The guys do eventually grab Tokka, and he cries like a wimp, Rahzar, save me! So Rahzar loses it, because Tokka's his only buddy, and he can't lose him. And he's able to knock down a concrete load-bearing column with his claws. A major collapse takes place, giving Tokka and Rahzar the chance they need to escape. Rahzar really takes his friendship seriously. Later that evening, the Ninja Turtles are watching the eccentric billionaire A.J. Howard on TV complain about mutants. And A.J. Howard actually uses the damage caused at the mall to further push his anti-mutant agenda, right? And that's when he announces that he hired Dirk Savage, mutant hunter, to capture all the mutants in the city. During the course of this episode, Genghis and Napoleon Bonafrog get captured by Dirk Savage. And even 2 of the Ninja Turtles get captured by Dirk Savage. So after scoring some, pretty big prey, Dirk sets up a table covered in food, and that's when we get our second Tokka and Rahzar scene. The 2 starving mutants begin to eat, and again, they're rudely interrupted. I mean, can't these guys get a break already? Like, maybe they would just go into hiding or hibernate if they could just get a damn meal. All right, so Dirk throws these, shackles around Tokka, which traps him, and Rahzar tries to go after Dirk Savage. Now, Rahzar successfully and impressively evades all of Dirk's weapons and traps. All right, he's actually too good at it. He jumps to the top of a building, and he pretty much has no way down, which allows Dirk to cart Tokka off to A.J. Howard's mutant prison. Again, Tokka cries like a little wuss for help, but, this time Rahzar is unable to do anything, because he's all the way up there. He just, vows for revenge and howls at the moon. Again, as Tokka is being taken away, he mentions that Tokka is his only friend in the world. Man, this is a sad, sad story. So right afterwards, Dirk violently captures Mondo Gecko, who's been acting as bait for the Turtles. He has a tracking device on him, so Raph and Donatello can follow Dirk to A.J. Howard's mutant prison. Just as they arrive, A.J. Howard fits Mondo and Tokka with compliance cuffs, and we will see if a compliance cuff actually fits on Tokka since we've gotten one before in this toy line. I'm going to say no. And then eventually AJ reveals himself to be a mutant slug. Gross. So when Raph and Donnie try to attack him, he uses this device, this little purple thing, to force all the captive mutants to attack Donnie and Raph. They manage to escape, and eventually what they try to do is they try to call Dirk Savage, hoping that he'll join them now that they know his employer is actually a mutant slug. When he shows up, he's not an easy sell, that's for sure. But as he's about to capture them, Rahzar attacks. And Rahzar means business. I mean, there's no way that Raph and Don will be able to stop him and his rage with their, little toy weapons, like a bow staff size. Those won't do anything, But you know what will? A fish. A fish from the fish market. That's right. Raph throws a fish at Rahzar, and it knocks the shit out of him. He's actually a little stunned, and Raph tries to stop him a little bit, and Rahzar manages to throw him off, but he still, can't get up from the ground from that blow from the fish. So Donnie and Raph throw a dumpster on him, They're trying to imprison him. But he immediately cuts his way out. I assume because steel is nowhere as strong as halibut, The only thing to fully capture Rahzar here is a beam from Dirk Savage's gun. Now that the two turtles saved Dirk, he agrees to help them stop A.J. Howard. And then Rahzar just sort of disappears from the rest of the episode. Where'd he go? He's not even here at the end of the scene. Back at A.J. Howard's building, Howard uses his compliance cuffs to make his slaves, of course, capture April O'Neil and fit her with an anti-mutant bracelet, all right? After all, it wouldn't be an episode if April wasn't captured or put in some sort of, death trap. And then after that, the episode sort of, rushes to the conclusion, in my opinion. It moves very quickly. As soon as Howard turns on his device to control everyone in the city who's wearing an anti-mutant turtle bracelet, Donnie, Raph, and Dirk show up in the blimp, and they blast his giant statue, which actually does house the controls, but like they were just sort of like, I don't know, they just automatically they show up and they're like, oh, that's got to be it. He's got to be controlling everybody with that thing. Like, I mean, come on, that's way too easy. But even though they destroyed that giant control tower, the compliance cuffs still control the mutants. So here, Tokka is still, under control, and he's supposed to be one of the mutants attacking Don and Raph, but we never actually see him lay a hand on them. Like he doesn't nothing. Dirk Savage manages to break the control device, and that finally frees Tokka and some of these other unnamed mutants that we've never seen before this and never will see again. However, earlier they were in the jail. They weren't in the prior episode or anything like that. So, Tokka takes off, and he's never to be seen again. It's a little anticlimactic, for Tokka and Rahzar. I kind of hope these two heterosexual life mates meet up and finally get a decent meal, Tokka and Rahzar, with a little luck, there is no end with what you can do together. All right, so this episode, as I said, is a fun episode filled with a ton of cool characters. And, I'm really looking forward to get my hands on NECA's Dirk Savage. But I'm not necessarily as excited to review this episode a fifth time in that review. Okay, so, Tokka and Rahzar, they don't do too much in this episode other than trying to eat and some pretty cool battles. But, the thing that really stands out in my mind is Rahzar's super strength. He makes the turtles look like they're nothing. And their personalities are so different from Secret of the Ooze. Thank goodness. Could you imagine how goofy they could have went with these guys if they were still babies? I don't even want to think about it. Luckily, this is a mature Tokka and Rahzar. And, they seem like a force to be reckoned with, both physically and with Rahzar mentally. And, to be honest with you, his voice kind of reminds me of Kirk Douglas when he's like, Tokka, you're my only friend. I can't do a Kirk Douglas impression, but and he also kind of reminds me of Simeon from Dial M from Monkey. I just feel like at any moment he's gonna start naming what they're eating, Tokka, what a succulent feast. King crab, swordfish, scalloped potatoes. I can't do that voice either, but he reminds me of that guy. All right, so first thing up is accuracy, all right? And, I thought it'd be fun to show how, the movie design inspired the 1991 action figure and how that action figure then inspired the 1993 cartoon design. Because the cartoon designs were not based off the movie designs. They were based directly off the toys, which were based off of here. There are some differences between the movie and the toy differences made it to the cartoon. All right, do you understand that? So first up is Tokka, because Tokka and Rahzar, he comes first in the line of this villainous duo. So back in the old Playmates toy line, there was actually two different versions of Tokka. I have the one with the darker skin. There was also one with a lighter skin tone. I used to have this, but for some stupid reason, I decided to sell it. And this is the design that they actually used whenever they had, started designing him for the 1993 cartoon, because he has that brighter skin tone in that episode. So I'm going to do my best to, compare the cartoon design to the Tokka I have, plus some few pictures I have left over from when I sold my Tokka. All right, so you come here and you take a look at the movie, the NECA movie Tokka, and you compare him to the original Playmates Tokka, and you can see that, they did a really good job of capturing his likeness in the original Playmates toy line. Obviously, he was built off of Slash's body, but because Slash was also a giant mutant turtle, a lot of things just matched up well, his the way that he kind of hunches over, the way his head sticks off his body. They did a good job of sculpting his face, I think. The length and everything like that, and even the beak and everything. So, he's got these fiery red eyes from the movie. into the Playmates action figure, and then he has those same fiery red eyes in the cartoon. And eventually, those fiery red eyes made their way to the this brand new NECA Tokka action figure. Now, if you look at the brighter Tokka, I didn't really like that one as much as the darker skin one. I felt like the contrast was like all weird on him. Like you have the bright skin, and then you had those really, really dark details. It just seemed like kind of noisy, like the design or something about him. So you have like the bright skin, and then you have the super bright beak, and you have the super dark gray around his mouth. You still have that dark gray around the mouth on this original Playmates action figure. I think it looks better. You also have gray around the eyeballs. You have that also on the brighter skinned Tokka. And here is where I think that they actually did a better job in the Fred Wolf series, all right? Because when they translated this Tokka to animation, they decided to make his whole beak completely dark gray. I think it's much more pleasant on the eyes. I don't think it is as jarring as much as the original bright Tokka. And I think, when they translated it to this brand new NECA action figure, he just looks fantastic. Like, I don't know, this guy looks awesome. Like, I think it would look a little goofy. It was like if it was still like the same brightness as the skin tone. I don't know, it wouldn't work as well, in my opinion. If you look at the front of Tokka's shell, it's a little dirty. It's a little messy looking. It's not pristine like the Ninja Turtles. It's, the same kind of yellowish orange color, but it kind of looks like he's been crawling around on like sludge or oil or something like that, okay? When they made the Playmates action figure, they kept that like sort of sludgy, dirty look in the crevices and the cracks and stuff like that. But they also added a darker color outline along the edge of the shell. If you look at the brighter skinned Tokka, they kept all pretty much the same exact pattern, the spots and the dark color and the cracks and crevices and the outline around the shell, that's all the same. Now, when they made it in the cartoon, they kept the dark outline around the front of the shell, but they sort of like maybe made the spots a little uniform. They're kind of mirrored exactly on both sides, which to me it just doesn't look as natural. It looks a little more mechanical. And then if you come to this brand new NECA Tokka, you can see that he does have that same design. You still have the dark color around the shell, and then you sort of have these almost mirrored. They're a little off, but not much. In the movie, Tokka had these like spikes sticking out of his shoulders, which are really cool, It's like he's got built-in body armor, he can ram people with those and whatever. When they made the Playmates action figure, Slash originally had like armor here. I think it's like pieces of wood or something like that. And, they removed that and they made these special like little spiked shoulder pieces. I'm pretty sure that this is just supposed to be flush. Like you're supposed to imagine in your head that, that round part is just his shoulder, like they're not separate pieces. But whenever they made the cartoon, they decided to make that round design like black, like it's the same color as his knee pads. So it looks like he has like little armor pads, I guess, glued to his shoulders because there's no straps attached to him. And then when you look at the action figure, he does have those. And again, they look just like armor. Like they don't look like they're part of his body or anything like that. Even the gold of the spikes matches the spike gold of the knee pad. The rest of the arm design is pretty simple. In the movie, he's got these giant elbow pads and just kind of like rags wrapped around them. He's got some rags wrapped around his wrists. And he's also got some cool leather gloves, because he's a cool dude. Maybe he could ride around on a motorcycle or something. On the original Playmates action figure, they pretty much kept all those same exact designs, except most of them aren't painted. Like you can see the rags sculpted around the elbow pads. And then like even down here in the wrist, he's got two sets of rags here, and only one of them is painted. The other one is just his skin color. And you can actually see that they did include the leather gloves on his hands. They just didn't paint them. In the cartoon, they removed the leather gloves, and on this action figure, you can see that too. He's got no leather gloves, but he does have the rings, or I'm sorry, the rags. You have the elbow pads, but even those are more simplified. You know, the rags look like they're actually a part of the elbow pad and not like another piece on top, which is normal. You know, it's fine because they had to simplify this guy a lot to animate him. Now, one thing you'll notice on this toy is that he's got 5 fingers. In the cartoon, he had 5 fingers, and that's because the action figure had 5 fingers. All right, but the original Tokka design in the movie did not have 5 fingers. He's got 3 big fingers and 1 thumb. You know, so I guess 4 fingers. I know people differentiate between thumbs and fingers, but I usually do not. So, you know, where did the Muppeteers? Where did they put their fingers? If you have 3 fingers, did they do it like this? One, the pointer finger, the middle finger, and then the ring finger and the pinky down at the bottom? Who knows? In the movie, Tokka did not have a belt, which is fine. It looks all right. When you look at the NECA action figure, it does look a little naked, just because he kind of reminds you of a Ninja Turtle, so you kind of think that he should have a belt on. But he really can't wear a belt because he's got all those spikes on the back of his shell, and it would look stupid if he had the belt going across the back. So the original Playmates toy did have a belt because, like I said, he was built off a slash. They kind of changed it by adding that foot symbol in the middle of it, which is fine, you know. Tokka, in the movie, at least, which the toy would have been based off the movie, he is, a mutant of the Foot Clan. But when they copied it for the cartoon, they left that foot symbol there. But Tokka has no relation whatsoever to the Foot Clan. In fact, the Foot, the Shredder, and Krang, didn't appear in this episode at all. So why is he wearing foot gear? I don't know. Now, if you come back to the original Playmates action figure, his belt was completely black. Nothing was painted at all. And one of my favorite things about the cartoon is you finally get to see all those cool little details painted. I like the colors they decided to go with. The light gray, the dark gray, the red, and the white. It all works together really well. I think there's some nice contrast. Especially if you look at the foot symbol within the ring there, that looks really cool. It really pops, and I also really like those red ninja stars, which are circled with the dark gray color. Those red ninja stars, man, they look so cool, and he doesn't even get to use one of these, not even once. They did remove. There was a grenade on the back of this belt that they got rid of. And they just replaced it with pouches, because it was the 90s and pouches were everywhere. So on both sides, he's got 2 pouches. If you look at the NECA Fred Wolf action figure, you can see that. He's got the 2 pouches in the back on both sides. And as you move to the front, you have all those cool red ninja stars, which, as I said, look awesome. Now, if you really want to get crazy, in the cartoon, he only has 2 ninja stars on both sides of his belts. Here he has 4, So he is really loaded up with weapons. I also really like how they painted the skull and crossbones on the front of this thing. I think on this toy they look great. In the cartoon they looked pretty cool, When you went all the way back to the original action figure, it's kind of hard to read all those details. Like, you can see them, but sometimes you kind of have to angle it in a certain way to get the light to reflect off the black. It's too dark. In the movie, Tokka just had these very simple knee pads. They're just these very big, cushiony looking knee pads. And he's got 4 toes. Unlike the Ninja Turtles, he's got 2. But then if you look at the Playmates action figure, since he's based off of the Slash action figure, he has the spiked Slash knee pads, and he's got 2 toes. When they translated him to the cartoon, what I do like is that they added some color to the knee pads. Like, you have the white or the grayish straps coming off the back of the knee pads. He still has the two toes. And then the action figure, of course, follows suit by having the same exact design, you know? And these are all good looking. What I do like about Tokka is just like the mass, you know? He just has such a bulk to him that, you know, you look at him and you compare him to the Ninja Turtles, and, you know, he's just out of this world compared to them. He's just huge. Where I think the original Slash action figure was just built off of a Ninja Turtle toy, right? Yeah. Like, this original Fred Wolf Slash just looks like he would just be decimated by Tokka. Now, if you had an Archie, I think, and I haven't gotten Archie Slash yet, but I think he's built off of the same body that this Slash is built, or I'm sorry, this Tokka is built off of. I think, you know, that would be a better fight, but this one, you're like, man, Tokka would mop the floor with this Slash. One final thing about Tokka, the back of his shell. Now, this is, like, amazing, you know. I love this thing. It is so dangerous. Like, you could really hurt yourself with this thing. It just looks awesome. It looks very dangerous for the Ninja Turtles. Like, they would not even want to get next to this guy, because all you'd have to do is turn around and just go, whap, and he'd kill him, you know? So, unfortunately, when we got the Playmates toy back in the 90s, you lost all of those spikes, right? You didn't have them at all. You just got one line down the back, just like Slash had. If you look at the brighter Slash, the back of his shell is very bright, but so you have like a darker color around where the spikes are, and then the inside of the shell is just this very bright tan color, all right? If you look at the cartoon, he does have that bright color, but they decided to outline the segments of his shell with the darker brown, which I think looks really nice. You know, I think it helps get rid of the monotony of the shell, you know, so that it's not just kind of boring to look at. And then if you look at this Fred Wolf toy, you have all that, you know. I think maybe some of these look a little too big, though. Like the space around these spikes and the segment, it just looks very, very big. I don't know how I feel about that exactly. I think it's okay, but could just be a little thinner or something. And that is all about Tokka. So when it comes to articulation, Tokka has some pretty good points, but there are some bits and pieces that sort of get in the way and block some movement. You know, I just want to say that, you know, I just think this guy looks great. You know, he has such a presence. Like, just the sculpt of his face has so much character in it. He looks just, man, he just looks monstrous. You know, he looks like a foe to be reckoned with for the Turtles, you know. And what more could you ask for? I know in the cartoon he, like, you know, kind of gets beat up a lot. Like he's a runt or something like that because he's smaller than Rahzar, but I don't know. I think he looks pretty awesome in this this sculpt. All right, so the mouth opens and closes, and you know, whether you have it open, whether you have it open or closed, I think it really makes him look like he's got a pretty interesting personality, pretty monstrous. His head has a ball joint. There's only one ball in there, so you can look down, look up. The shoulder joint here, this is one of the points where this thing gets in the way of the articulation. So when you try to put his arm up, you can only get it about that far before the shoulder pad gets in the way. So, you know, you're not going to be able to do too much or get... Yeah, I mean, right there I'm even pushing into the shell. So his arm is not going to have the, you know, the greatest movement. I mean, it works. Just, you know, you won't be able to get into him into any extreme poses. His bicep has a swivel. He's got double jointed elbows, and they work pretty well. You know, I have no complaints about that. His wrists have a swivel, and they also have a hinge, which, again, work well. You know what I think is interesting about his hands is I feel like the way that his hands are sculpted, the pointer finger and the middle finger are close together, and the ring finger and the pinky are kind of close together. So he kind of, to me, it kind of reminds me of like the Penguin, you know, from the Batman movie, when you're trying to pretend to be the Penguin, or even when you're trying to be a Ninja Turtle, and you kind of do this with your fingers to pretend like you only got 3. That's what he kind of reminds me of. You have some articulation right here in the torso, but to be honest with you, I can barely get anything to move there. Like, that is, like, you have such a stiff shell right here, and you have this gigantic back shell. Like, I can barely get any movement out of that whatsoever. The hips here, you know, they're ball joints. They work great, you know, just like all the other brand new NECA hips since, what, Trag and Granitor, I think it was. They swivel well. Now, here is the next point of where something sort of gets in the way, right? You have these double jointed knees, and they sort of work fine. The bottom one especially, you know, bends back. But this one right here, the top joint, I can never get it to bend very far because the strap sort of gets in the way and starts to block the movement there, all right? So, like, that's as far as I can really get him to bend his knee. The ankle joint has a hinge, and it's got ankle rockers. All the articulation is fairly stiff, you know? Like, I don't feel like he's wobbly or anything like that. I feel like he's nice and sturdy, and it's not too stiff so that when you're trying to move his body parts, they feel like they're going to snap. So, you know, thumbs up for that. Next up, we have Rahzar, the mutant wolf. So back in the original Secret of the Ooze movie, I never thought that Rahzar appeared extremely wolf. Like, when you looked at him, I just didn't see it, you know? I thought he had a cool-looking face. He just did not look like a wolf to me, I guess. I don't know if it's because of his snout or the ears. Something about it is just a little different, you know? But, you know, this action figure was amazing. I mean, look at the mouth. That's crazy. But you know what I see when I look at, with Rahzar, even more than Tokka, is I just see Muppet, all right? I look at him and I'm like, you know, this guy would make a real good friend for Sweetums. But like I said, he's cool. He's just not as canine as I would think he should look. So when they made the original Playmates action figure, you know, I think they extended out his snout to make him appear more canine. I don't know, something about him just looks more dog-like, more wolf-like than how he looks in the movie. In the cartoon, I think they fleshed his face out even more, you know. I think he looks even more like a wolf than the Playmates action figure. And, you know, I think when you look at this action figure, this brand new NECA Fred Wolf action figure, they definitely copied that really well, you know. I mean, this guy looks like a wolf. He looks like he could be like a werewolf toy. He looks pretty great. I think in the cartoon that maybe there's a little more mass to his head, like it's a little bigger. The fur sticks out a little more. But I think that this action figure is just perfectly fine. You know, I think he looks pretty great. He captures that same personality or just the proportions. I think are very close with this guy. I also kind of think that this guy looks like he's got a mohawk. In the movie, Rahzar wears a car grill around his chest. It's kept there with a, you know, some chains that tie around the back of his body. When they made the Playmates action figure, they kept the car grill, but they got rid of the chains and added a blue t-shirt, a blue ripped up t-shirt for some reason. I don't understand that exactly, but okay, you know. I don't know. You think fabric is will support this car grill hanging off of his chest, or is this glued in place? Or is it, you know, did they use some bobby pins to keep it there? I don't know. So in the cartoon, they decided to go with the t-shirt route, you know. And, you know, the design of the shirt is actually pretty close to how it appears on the Playmates action figure. Like how the rips stick out in certain spots. The same spots stick out in the cartoon. Sometimes in the cartoon, you will see the front of the t-shirt connecting underneath his arm to the back of the t-shirts. But then other times, lots of times, you don't have that connection from the front to the back. If you look at the action figure that NECA produced, you know, he still has those same spots or those same tears. And then he does have the one piece of t-shirt that goes from the front all the way to the back. Rahzar has these like rubber shoulder pads that are pretty cool. And I don't know what these are supposed to be. This actually looks more of like a almost like a burner on a stove. But I'm not sure. And then you have like these tassels coming off of it. When they made the Playmates action figure, you know, they kept the rubber looking shoulder pads, but those bits on the fronts of the pads, they don't look like burners anymore. They almost look like struts, like in your car, like on top of your shocks when you open up your hood. So in the cartoon, you know, they kept that same exact design. They just simplified it a little more, you know. And here on this NECA action figure, they copied that, the simplified design. Although those circles don't look like struts anymore. They just look like, you know, circles. Nothing specific. Rahzar did not have any elbow pads, and he only had one, like, spiked tire pad on his right forearm. The other one did not have that, and that was kept there with some straps. He's got some rags around his wrists, which all look really awesome on this action figure. Now, when they made the Playmates action figure, they put these spiked tires on both of his forearms. All right, so he's got double armor, and they gave him elbow pads. They gave him these metal spiked elbow pads, and around his wrists, instead of rags, they gave him shackles with chains. So that's pretty neat. And, you know, also they gave him 5 fingers. They updated that too. Just like Tokka got 5 fingers. So in the cartoon, they kept all of that, you know, from the Playmates action figure. They kept the elbow pads, although they kind of simplified them. You know, they're not metal elbow pads. They're just kind of like white, and they got the spikes coming out of them. He's got the shackles around his wrists, but they lost pretty much all their detail. Sometimes you see chains, and sometimes, a lot of times you actually don't see chains attached to them. And he also has the forearm tire pads. Except here, you know, you couldn't tell that those are supposed to be tires. They just look like squares, all right? Squares with spikes. And again, what's keeping those spiked squares there? He's got no straps or anything like that, so what's going on? Sometimes it appears as though maybe you could kind of pretend that those are attached to the shackles. But if you look at this NECA action figure, you can see that it does not look like that at all, right? These are kind of floating by themselves, not on top of the shackles, not on top of the elbow pads. They are just there somehow. I think the white shackles and the white elbow pads are actually kind of nice. They're kind of like a neat contrast to the rest of his darker fur. But, you know, they are very, very simple. Rahzar has 2 like cloth pieces for his loincloth. You got the black one and the white one underneath. Front and back. They are fine, all right? So when they made the Playmates action figure, instead of giving him 2, they just, you know, they cut it down to 1, which is fine. It just looks like he's got a rope tied around his waist, and this loincloth is just kind of tucked in here and kept in place. It's not like attached or anything like that. In the back, it's just a little wider, you know. He's got more to expose, to cover up in the back there, right? Now, in the cartoon, what's kind of funny is that they kind of got... It doesn't look like he's wearing a loincloth in the cartoon. It looks like he's wearing like a green diaper that kind of just has like some fabric just kind of hanging out the top, you know. Even the toy here has got that same look, you know. It's not a loincloth, that's for sure. But if you look at the back, you know, you have the big one sticking out the back, which, you know, just doesn't make any sense because he's wearing underwear. Like the original one, it almost looked like he wasn't wearing underneath that, you know, like he is just completely covering up his special little area there. Where here, he already has underwear on, so what's the point? And then in the cartoon, you got that too. Rahzar has more tire armor on his thighs, and these are awesome. Man, even just these, how it looks like there's just nails sticking out of this, that's great, you know? I love that stuff. His knee pads all have the same rubber front of them. You have these little round things, but they look different than the ones on his shoulder. I don't know what these are. I guess I would imagine they're supposed to be some kind of car part. And they also have the tassels, because he's a fancy wolf. He likes to dress up nice. He's got 3 toes. The Playmates action figure, he's got the tire thigh pads with the spikes. You know, the detail on the tire part is actually pretty cool looking. It looks nice. You still know exactly what it is when you look at it. The knee pads are very simplified. You know, they got rid of the tassels. They kept the circles. They have the same rubber there. But they did give him 5 toes, almost like he is a wolf man. Now, in the cartoon, again, you've got some floating square spikes on his thighs. No straps connected to them at all. No detail whatsoever to show that they are tire squares. And then, like, the knee pads, again, you know, more simplified. He's still got the circles and everything like that. And if you look at the action figure, he's got all of that. Although, they didn't give him 5 toes. They only gave him 4. Why would they do that in the cartoon? How come they can't keep Rahzar's toes consistent? And no, I don't really care. I'm just joking. One final thing, you know, just mentioning is the back of his shoulder pads have these giant pieces of, I don't know, steel or something like that. I don't know. This is a cool looking design. You know, it's very, very unique, you know, very unusual compared to the other types of armor you usually see on guys. You know, obviously everything built on Rahzar came from the junkyard, right? The Playmates toy does not have that. I mean, you got these circles in the back, but, you know, they're just the same circles as the front, you know, nothing special. And then you just have the t-shirt in the back. Same thing with the cartoon. And same thing with the brand new NECA action figure. Now let's talk about Rahzar's articulation. He pretty much has all the same exact points that Tokka has. The mouth opens and closes, and it looks great, you know. It fits in there really well. It looks nice and sound. It doesn't look too weird or anything like that. And it moves open pretty freely, you know. Unlike my Leatherhead, who I still can't open his mouth, really. He's got a ball joint here at the base of his head. So you can look up that high. And you can look down that low. Unfortunately, the way his eyes are painted, he's really looking up, right? So you got to kind of have him, like, hunched down a little bit like this, so that he's sort of piercing forward at somebody. But unfortunately, his eyes are still too high for the Ninja Turtles. He'll be looking over their heads. The shoulder here rotates around and you have a hinge, but the shoulder pad gets in the way. So you can only lift up the arm that much. So, you know, he's not going to be able to, you know, reach up into the sky or anything like that. You have a bicep cut, so that can rotate around. That works okay too, but that also can kind of start to get stopped by the elbow pad, or I'm sorry, the shoulder pad. He's got double jointed elbows, but I've only really been having an easy time moving this bottom one. I haven't really been able to move this top joint for both of his arms. I don't mind that as much because I think double jointed elbows can be kind of funky, but I think this looks fine the way it is, you know, just having him bend that far. The wrists rotate around and you have a hinge there. He's got like a ball joint in his torso, so you can hunch over pretty far, you can hunch back, you can rock to the side, and you can also twist around. There is a little bit of a gap, like depending on how you look at him. It's not as noticeable. I mean, sometimes, I don't know, it's not too bad, but it's there. You know, you notice it. I can't move the waist at all, so I don't know if that's got articulation there or not. He's got ball jointed hips, just like Tokka's. You know, the same system. They work great. You have double jointed knees, and these ones stop about that far because the strap gets in the way. And then the feet here, the ankles have a hinge, and they also have ankle rockers. And that is all for Rahzar. When it comes to scale, in the cartoon, it mostly looks like Tokka is just a little bit taller than the Ninja Turtles. And Rahzar, you know, towers over them. He's huge compared to them. You know, there is this one really weird shot of Tokka where he's standing next to Mondo Gecko, and Mondo Gecko is taller than him. Man, screw that. Like, I don't want to live in a world where Tokka is smaller than Mondo Gecko. Somebody at the Fred Wolf offices messed up. All right, so if you look at the action figures, you can see that Tokka does indeed just slightly stand a little taller than the Ninja Turtles, and Rahzar is a hulking beast next to him. I mean, Rahzar is pretty huge. But whether you're talking height or just, mass, I mean, because Tokka is huge, both of them look like they are a deadly adversary. Because Tokka and Rahzar were sculpted by Paul Harding, I thought it'd be cool to, see how these guys compare to Ground Chuck and Dirtbag. When I look at all four of these guys together, I feel like there is a certain similarity between them. Obviously, Tokka and Rahzar are all new parts. None of them are built off of Ground Chuck and Dirtbag, but you can see subtle hints at maybe Paul's design style, maybe, I guess. The fur on Rahzar really reminds me of the fur on Ground Chuck. And I don't know, maybe there's something about the faces, the way the eyes look might remind me of each other, It's just kind of cool to see this, to see this, the evolution of a sculptor. I should have did a better job of keeping track of everybody who sculpted every single action figure in this line, just to, lump them together somehow and show them off that way. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan of Tokka and Rahzar for a number of reasons, all right? First, I was a huge fan of the Muppets and everything that Jim Henson Studios had done, The 1990 movie, blew my mind with the Ninja Turtles, and this was just such an amazing leap forward, Secret of the Ooze, where you not only had pretty good looking Ninja Turtles, although I think they look better in the first movie, but you also had these gigantic, monstrous mutants that the Ninja Turtles had to fight. The only thing I didn't like about them was how stupid they were. They were dumb babies. That wasn't cool. So finally, in my opinion, the cartoon did Tokka and Rahzar right. Not only were they a fearsome threat, they were also smart and intelligent. They had better personalities, and I would have loved to have watched that episode when I was a kid. I don't think I saw that episode until 2009 when it was released on DVD, and back then, it really made my day. And if you would have told me that in 13 years from then, I would have gotten highly accurate toys of Tokka and Rahzar in animated form, I would have thought you were crazy. It's really amazing how NECA is able to pump these guys out with, such awesome quality and detail. And yeah, I know sometimes NECA toys have problems, but in all honesty, I really couldn't think of anything negative to say about these two guys. They are that good. So now, let's move on to accessories. So first up in accessories is this platter of food. And this is nice, it's nice how you have all these different things on here, all nicely sculpted and glued into place. I think it's funny how this chicken or whatever it is has the spine right in the middle of it. That's not how we work, And then you kind of have bologna and maybe some yams, potatoes. What are these? I guess that would still be potatoes. Lots of good stuff. It's like a Thanksgiving meal, right? You can see that whenever Dirk Savage sets his trap to capture Tokka. It's right on this plate right there. Up next is a chicken leg. It's got the bones sticking out of it and everything, Tokka can hold this. Well, Tokka and Rahzar can both hold it because they both have the same exact hands. But see, you can try to get him to eat this, and you can see him try to eat one of those in the beginning of the episode whenever the Ninja Turtles go fight Tokka and Rahzar at the restaurants. Now up next you have another, I don't think this is a chicken leg. I mean, doesn't look like a chicken leg I've ever seen. In fact, it almost looks like a thigh. Maybe it's supposed to be beef or pork. Maybe it's a pork leg. But you just get this giant bone down at the bottom and you get the bone at the top. Both of these guys can hold this, which is nice. So there you go, he's got that in his hand. And there are two parts where Rahzar has sort of eaten something similar to this. First, he eats something like this in the beginning of the episode whenever they're at the restaurant. And then Raphael rudely knocks it out of his hands with a sigh. And then later on, whenever Rahzar and Tokka are eating, Dirk Savage's trap food, he is eating something very similar to this. They could have included some bite marks or something like that, but, it's fine that they didn't. And up next is this fish. Ooh! Oh, come on, Rahzar, don't be scared. This looks really cool, I like the color and everything. The details are very nice, and they actually match the cartoon fish really well. I mean, if you look at that, and then you come back to the toy, it looks almost exactly the same. And this fish was used, of course, by Raphael to, knock out Rahzar. I mean, he could not fully recover after he got one of these things thrown into his waist. Maybe the wind got knocked out of him. And last up is this purple controller. And, I like this design. I think it's pretty neat. It's very unique. It almost looks like a little video game or something, where you got that big blue button there. But I like the color, the purple and the blue and the white and everything like that. There's nothing on the bottom. Now, nobody that's been released yet has actually held this item, because A.J. Howard holds it, and then later on it gets knocked out of his hands by Dirk Savage. But, in the cartoon, A.J. Howard uses this device to control every mutant that has been fitted with a compliance cuff, all right? And then later on in the end of the episode, like I said, Dirk Savage knocks it out of his hand, and then he steps on it to break it. So speaking of compliance cuffs, can you get the compliance cuff on Tokka, Can he be controlled by A.J. Howard? No. You're not going to be able to get that on there. His wristband gets in the way, that doesn't come off of his wrist. And I just think the actual size of his forearm is just way, way too big for this thing. Tokka and Rahzar both come with two sets of hands. They both come with a set of clawing hands, and they're actually the same exact sculpted hands too, just one is smooth and one of them has fur on it. So they both have claw hands, a set, both a right and a left. And they also have a set of gripping hands, all right? Both a right and a left gripping hand. So that way they can hold their food. So, the claw hands are fine because I could see these guys totally scratching the Ninja Turtles. But it would have been nice if they would have also included one set of fists. But I mean, and off the top of my head, Rahzar usually scratches stuff with this. He breaks Leo's sword with his claws. He also knocks over that column in the mall with his claws, so I guess claws and gripping hands are good enough. So are there any accessories that could have been included here but were not? I would say no. I think the accessories that, are left over from the episode are more Dirk Savage accessories, all right? Like, he has this one trap that is a little different from the trap that was included with Genghis. And he also has like a lot of weapons, a lot of guns, and he also has these these cuffs that are attached to like these cords that wrap around people. So, like, you could have included something like this for Tokka. I'm sure they probably are not going to include something like this with Dirk Savage, but this was definitely something that, could have fit here, but it could also fit with Dirk. And, that's it for accessories. And now let's take a look at the Ninja Turtle. Let's take a look at Tokka and Rahzar next to some of the other Ninja Turtle toy lines. So here's Tokka and Rahzar next to just a few of NECA's Fred Wolf Ninja Turtle action figures, because there's way too many to shoot on screen at the same time. But I just thought it'd be cool to see them next to, Bebop and Rocksteady, since those guys are the guys that missed out on the movie, man. Tokka and Rahzar stole their spots, and now Tokka and Rahzar are trying to, weasel in on their cartoon. I'm surprised they didn't do something like that, like when Secret of the Ooze came out, they weren't like, okay, well now kids know Tokka and Rahzar from the movie, so we're going to get rid of Bebop and Rocksteady and make Tokka and Rahzar like the main villains, or the main sidekicks to the Shredder and Krang. And here's Tokka and Rahzar next to some of Super 7's Ultimates. It looks like the Fred Wolf Bebop and Rocksteady told the, their bigger brothers to come beat the snot out of these guys. Here they are next to two of NECA's Mirage Ninja Turtles. I think that, you could have these guys next to these guys and it wouldn't be that bad. I think maybe Rahzar's face is a little more cartoony than you'd want. Like, these Mirage Turtles, their faces are very serious looking. Here they are next to two of Playmates' classic Ninja Turtle toys. The thing that really slaps you in the face with all those guys, especially Mikey, is just all the pins. My goodness gracious. They're so in your face and so easy to notice, With the NECA action figures, I think they do what they can to shrink the pin size, and they also just kind of, they mesh well with the rest of the sculpts. They're not jarring. They're not, too ugly, And then, of course, Super 7, they don't even use pins, so Playmates is a little bit behind here. And that's all. This was a cool review to make. I like Tokka and Rahzar a lot, so it was nice to finally take a look at both of these guys. And I think now I'm either going to move on to the premonition of a premutation or whatever it's called, or move on to maybe the Rock Soldiers and Crooked Ninja Turtle gangs. I love those guys, so, I really want to talk about them. So, we'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll even talk about some of the brand new Super 7 Ultimates that I've got my hands on. We'll see. But thanks for watching, and talk to you later, and have a good one.